What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and this is Battlefield 3 Rush on Cargo and Attack side with the AN-94. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Assault class across the portion of this uncut gameplay, because I know a lot of you guys in my previous video, you really liked that, it seemed. So I'm doing it again. Maybe I can turn this into a series if you guys would like. But in this discussion, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Assault class in terms of when to revive, when not to revive, my thoughts on that, as well as 320 versus MedKit. Because you're an assault soldier, you are not medic. I think a lot of people seem to get caught up in the fact that, oh, you have a MedKit and you have defibrillators, you have to be a medic. If you're not a medic, you're doing it wrong. You're not playing your class if you're not a medic. Why are you not reviving everything? That's the general gist I get from a lot of this community and the players that you play with and everything. And I personally am a guy who has no qualms busting out the 320. You know, this is not Call of Duty where the 320 is a noob weapon. In Battlefield 3, the 320 is pretty much only good for destruction and tactical usage, you know, which really is the case. Because really, the 320 is not an effective anti-infantry weapon. I mean, you're not going to run around noob tubing. It's, you know, maybe you do, but personally, I've had absolutely no luck with it. I'd rather shoot people. I'm much more efficient that way. But anyways, what I want to talk about first off, before I go too terribly much into that, is revives. A lot of people take the thought of revive everything. If it's dead, revive it. Which, yeah, sure, it's nice for points and everything, but, you know, that's, you know, it depends on how the points are accomplished. I mean, basically, the way I look at it is, if you have a buttload of points, but you're doing absolutely nothing but sitting in a tank, for example, Sane Crossing, where you can just basically sit back on your side of the river and rack up a tremendous kill count, that's not impressive. That's not really helpful at all. Because more often than not, what will happen in that case is your team will end up losing because on Sane Crossing, you need the armor, because otherwise the other team is going to destroy you with their armor. It's just the way that map is structured. So yeah, sure, you put up 30 bajillion kills, but really, is that impressive? No, it's not. It really is not. It's just how that map plays out. But anyways, so a lot of people do take the revive everything approach, which honestly is the wrong approach. There's a time to revive and a time not to revive. I really am quite relaxed with my revives, I should say, where I don't revive everything. I don't revive too terribly much. I do revive, but I'm not going out of my way to revive people more often than not. And let me explain why not. You know, first of all, if you die in the process of trying to get to revive someone, instead of losing 1 ticket, you lost 2 tickets. Because you're not going to be able to revive that guy, you're dead. So instead of 1 ticket, you lost 2. Simple as that. There's also the fact that if a guy died, he's probably in a bad position, and that's why he died. You know, Battlefield 3 really is a game of movement and positioning on the map, which, you know, like I said, if a guy's dead, he's dead for a reason. You know, people don't just randomly, never mind, this is Battlefield 3, people do randomly just drop dead. Bad luck. No. You know, getting yourself killed in the process of a revive defeats the entire purposes of a revive. Completely. There's no point in reviving someone if you die. You know, but right there, perfect revive. That guy was in a good position to be revived. He's right there on the objective, right next to me. You know, even a squad mate, yay, squad play! As another squad guy pops out my butt. And then he's actually going to end up reviving me. But, you know, he's right there. Pick him up. You know, it does no harm. He's a body on the objective. He's not slowing me down or anything. I just ran right by him, hit my button, boom, revived. And I couldn't decide which guy to shoot, and I totally didn't check my corners, so I get blasted by this red rum guy, but look at this. Hiding in a box with an M4, suppressed, 100% health, so he wasn't just healing up, because really I wouldn't have a problem if you're doing that. But hey, I didn't check the corner, it was my fault, but I will get revenge. I swear I will get my revenge. But anyways, you did see me switch over to the 320 bit, largely because it's more effective in this portion of the map. But anyways, so reviving people isn't necessarily the end-all be-all of playing the assault kit. It really is not. You know, tossing medkits is not the end-all be-all of the assault class. You know, the assault class does have the best guns in the game, bar none, and that's basically what the class is built around. Add in the ability to have a grenade launcher like you see me using here. It's pretty powerful even without, you know, simply spamming the medkits or spamming revives. You know, you don't need to do that. It has its own uses outside of that. Those are extra bonuses. You know, the gadgets are just that. They're gadgets, not... This should be your primary use for this class. Because it's really not. And I shot a truck and it blew up, killing a guy that I couldn't even hit. That was pretty cool. And Mr. Red Rum, it's time you meet my friend. Building. Hi. Hi. My kill was a little bit cooler than yours, so... Haha! Anyways. On to the 320. Obviously, in this portion of the map, getting that building out of the way if you're on the attacker side is absolutely crucial. Because the defenders can lodge in there, they can nest in there like one of those Russian nesting dolls like you saw those guys earlier. They can put a spawn beacon down and spawn instantly right there. Not to mention that the objective is like a foot outside and convenient smoke grenade. But the objective is right there. It's just a really easy place to defend if you basically allow them to as an attacker. So you got to get that building out of the way. And, you know, really it makes people a lot harder to see because of the fact that the building is like comes down all crunkled and jaggled, and those words don't even exist, but a bunch of rubble and everything. So it makes it harder to identify a guy moving around on the other side of that building from where the defenders are. So in a way, you're providing extra concealment as well. Again, difference between concealment and cover. Concealment makes you harder to see, but not harder to shoot. Well, cover makes you harder to see and harder to shoot. Essentially. Anyways. As for the 320 versus medkit, you know, there's no problem with using a 320 at all. Don't hesitate to ever put a 320 on your gun. You know, there's plenty of people in the game that are going to be tossing medkits or going to be, you know, basically revive spamming. Although, you know, again, the 320 doesn't affect defibrillators, but I think it more reflects the assault side rather than the, you know, I could use this as a medkit. Again, this is an assault class, not a medic class. You know, thanks to DICE and their infinite wisdom, they, you know, basically watered down the class system and everything and combined everything, which, you know, I'm not a fan of, but it is what it is. In case you guys haven't noticed, this is the assault class. I feel like I've said that like 37,000 times this video, and I probably have. However, you know, the 320 is a very useful option. You know, people often overlook it just because they are stuck in that, oh, I'm a medic, you know, mindset, as well as the fact that the medkit does allow you to essentially self-heal, which you saw earlier, I think, on the first objective of the game, which was like literally like 15 seconds into the game. I took some damage, I fall back, I chuck my medkit, I heal up. You know, obviously there is regenerating health in this game, however, it's not fast enough at all to make it really useful to use in terms of self-healing. You know, when you add in the medkit, you can, in theory, actually not in theory, if you're fighting on a medkit, what will actually happen is you will actually take an extra bullet to kill. And this right up here is the best spawn ever. That guy spawned right as I threw my grenade, so he was invincible as my grenade exploded. Oh, man! I was raging. I really was. That infuriated me, but that said, I will go ahead and finish what I started. And there's nobody there, conveniently enough, so I'm just going to punch these buttons into this here conveniently placed box. But anyways, I did switch back to the medkit, much more effective at this juncture in the map, because there really isn't anything that needs destructed. You know, it just kind of depends. Obviously, the 320 does have a bunch of options outside of just destruction. Notably so, on a map like Sane Crossing, I use the M320 9 times out of 10. Not because I sit there lobbing, you know, 320 grenades at the buildings to try and bring down the, you know, facades on people down below, but because I freaking hate Vodniks and Humvees. If you guys have not noticed, Vodniks and Humvees are basically as good as an MBT in Battlefield 3. You know, they take 2 or 3 rockets to destroy. Yeah, they take 1 to disable, but, you know, that's... I'll keep going here. you know, they just are sponges, essentially. You know, they do take way too many rockets to destroy, in my opinion. To the point where when you add in that 50 cal turret on the roof and everything, and how fast you can move around it, and, you know, they really are a pain in the butt that can just destroy waves and waves and waves and waves as foot soldiers. And I saw there was a rocket, so I'm like, oh hey, there must be a guy over there somewhere. He's probably not friendly. See, now that's where my tank just was. I don't get that guy, but I did get the spot on him, so hopefully someone ends up mopping up. But anyways, where was I? Just completely lost my own train of thoughts. But no, Vodniks and Humvees will just destroy you. They will destroy you. I mean, I don't understand the thinking behind it on Dice's end, but, you know, whatever it is, what it is. But the 320, of course, will one-shot disable them, which basically takes them out of the fight, because they either have to jump out to repair it, which is quite pointless to repair a transport vehicle, in my opinion, or else they're going to have to sit there burning up and hopefully not get destroyed. And when I say not get destroyed, of course they'll burn down to the point where they do get destroyed automatically unless they repair. But, you know, more so the fact that they basically are going to have to jump out to repair rather than just sit there and continue to mow down wave upon wave of infantry. And that guy got shot, so I thought maybe I could sneak in there, hide behind the MCOM, and revive the guy at the same time to maybe decoy him. But it didn't work out too terribly well, that place. So I'm just going to swing around this corner here because there's a lot of people coming in from the other side in, but there's absolutely no one here. So that was kind of silly. I thought it was going to be like, oh yeah, the flank is on, but there was nobody to flank, so sad face. But then he was seeing me go up here, revive that guy, and 3-piece with the AN-94. Oh yeah, that's just so tasty. But this game's winded down to an end here. There's literally only about 15 seconds left. That may or may not be an understatement or an overstatement. I don't remember, so I'm going to shut up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Bye.